Hello and welcome to the SHRM Labs Workplace Tech Spotlight. My name is Trevor Schachner. I'm a product manager at SHRM Labs. I'll be your host for this SHRM Labs series where we shine a spotlight on some of the most interesting future of work innovators, innovations, and issues of today. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping and a couple announcements. The Workplace Tech community is now available for all SHRM members. This is your guide to all things HR technology. If you're a SHRM member, please visit workplacetechcommunity.shrm.org to learn more. Also, the first segment of our Better Workplaces Challenge Cup is live on March 5th. We'll have 5 of the best emerging technologies in workforce planning, all pitching their products live to a panel of HR and tech experts. Be sure to visit betterworkplaceschallengecup.com to learn more and register for the event. I'm really excited about this topic today. It's about AI governance and responsible AI. I'm definitely an AI fan and have been following it closely, so really excited to chat today. But you're probably wondering what does this have to do with HR? And truly AI is going to affect all aspects of worker and the workplace. And understanding the best practices to ensure responsible and safe applications of AI is going to be crucial even for HR. So joining us today is Guru Sethupathy from FairNow. He's the CEO and co-founder of FairNow. They are a startup in the space. Guru, thanks so much for joining us.
Trevor, thanks for having me and look forward to chatting about this topic.
Absolutely. Before we get started, could you tell the audience a little bit about you, your background, your current role, and the company that you started?
Yeah, happy to. So FairNow, we're a startup. We're focused on helping companies across domains, specifically HR, but other domains as well, ensuring that their AI that they're using, that they're building, that they're deploying is compliant with laws and regulations, that it's fair and unbiased, and that it's well managed and well governed. My background, I've spent the last dozen years at McKinsey and Capital One, Trevor, leading teams, building AI solutions, especially in the financial services space and in the HR domain as well, right? So have a lot of background building AI technology, building AI solutions. And so understand kind of the positive and the potential of it, but also understand the risks. And that's why we started this company to really help companies be excited, right? Not to be scared of AI, not to be overly worried about the risks, but to see, hey, how do they balance the potential benefits, but be well governed in order to mitigate the risks. And so that's what we're here to do.
Awesome. Well, excited to dive into this a little bit more. So could you give me, your perspective on why AI governance is such a hot topic in HR specifically?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, AI is a hot topic, right? So let's start there. And for good reasons, right? I think ChatGPT just captured the imagination of so many people, individuals and businesses and companies in its potential. And we see that, especially in HR, Trevor, even with kind of the innovations in HR technology over the last 5+ years, HR still operates kind of in the same fashion as it has for a long time, right? In a lot of ways, it's very manual, not quite data-driven in the way that it can be, not quite technologically driven in the way it can be. And so AI is just kind of there's really a lot of opportunity to impact HR through AI. I talk about the 3 E's often, efficiency, efficacy, and experiences. And AI has the ability to transform HR in all 3 of those dimensions. So as exciting as it is and the potential, I think there's also a lot of trepidation in HR, right? Because we see kind of some of the obvious risks, partly because HR is a high-risk domain, right? You're talking about people's livelihoods, their careers, their pay. And so getting any of those things wrong is very costly. It's costly at a personal level, individual level. It's costly at a reputational and legal level. And so companies want to make sure they're doing this correctly. And you see kind of some of the lawsuits already out there. Companies have been sued on kind of discrimination lawsuits. The laws and legislations and regulations that are coming out do have HR in the crosshairs as a high-risk space for the use of AI. So again, I often counsel people, hey, don't use that as an excuse not to invest in AI, but do it in conjunction with good governance, and you'll be set.
Absolutely. I think it's such a great point that, understanding what's going on from the HR perspective, but also from the legal and compliance perspective, it really puts HR kind of in the crosshairs of what's happening. So it's a great call out. Curious to hear your thoughts on how organizations can balance innovation and risk when it comes to adopting new AI.
Yeah. When you think about any innovation, the balance with risk is paramount, right? If you think of pharma companies, they're constantly innovating on drugs, right? When you're thinking about self-driving cars or technological innovations, I mean, constantly any company, any organization that's innovating has to think about the risks because innovations lead to powerful technologies. And so the risks have to always be balanced. What's different is now, before it used to be a particular sector, right? Like maybe pharmaceuticals or tech company or whatever. Now every domain is thinking about AI. And so this is a cross-cutting problem that everyone is kind of in the throes of right now. And so that's why this is such a hot topic at this point in thinking about kind of responsible AI governance, et cetera. When you think about good governance practices, I'll share a few things. And again, you can go to our website to see more around this. But the first thing I talk about is just what are your policies, right? Like just start there. Like what are your policies? How do you think about ethics? Where will you use AI? Where will you not use AI? What are your red lines, right? How do you think about accountability? For the foreseeable future, humans need to be in the loop. They need to be in the loop in terms of building these technologies. They need to be in the loop in terms of decision making around these technologies, and so on and so forth. So how do you think about humans, the role of humans, human accountability? That's an important thing to think about. And then also transparency, right? What is your kind of ideal level of transparency with the users of the AI technologies, with the people who are interacting with the technology, et cetera? So those are some key elements that any good governance practice should start with, is what are your policies around these things? And then you should think about kind of what are your controls, right? So you should, first of all, inventory all of your AI. I've talked to leaders at many different companies who don't even know who's using AI in their company, who's building it, what are the different models that are in place. So, first step is just inventory all this, inventory your AI assets, figure out what risk levels there are. Not all AI is risky, right? Some of it's just a simple chatbot that's just kind of talking about your internal policies might not be that risky. Something that is predicting good candidates for hire is riskier, right? So figure out a way to triage risk around these models. And then start to monitor these models, right? Like around bias, around performance, around hallucinations, around different types of categories, and then ensure that you're compliant with laws and regulations. So those are the 4 or 5 things that are part of a really good governance program.
Such a great point. And it's something I don't think a lot of organizations are thinking about. I know a lot of the ones that I am interacting with on a day-to-day basis, it's still new enough that we haven't gotten quite to that point, but really great call out, like the inventory idea. It makes total sense. And it's definitely something people should go out there and take a look at. So, we always hear about, risk in general and not having proper governance, but I'm wondering if you could give some examples of what does it actually look like not having proper governance, and what kind of things can come down the line to impact companies if that's not in place?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I talked about what good governance looks like. And to be honest, most organizations don't have that, right? So that's kind of the state of the world we're in today. Part of the reason we left to do FairNow is we had a realization that financial services is a space that's a little further ahead, Trevor, than other domains, because they've been regulated for a long time. Right? They've been regulated for a long time, and they've been using machine learning and AI for a long time. And so they've had to build really good governance practices, right? And so there's actually a lot we can learn from them in implementing governance elsewhere. And that's what I often talk about when I talk about the 5 things in the last question. When you don't do that and you use AI, well, here are some of the risks, right? So number 1, obvious, are the regulatory risks, right? The EU AI Act has passed. It's probably going to kind of, the clock is going to start later this year, and companies are going to have 1 to 2 years to get in compliance. And the fines are quite large. They're quite substantial, right? And so that is something that I think companies are not going to want to mess around with, and they're going to want to be compliant. So there's that regulatory risk. But there's also just kind of reputational risk. If anything goes wrong, especially if you're a large company, people are waiting. There's a lot of lawyers, there's a lot of law firms, and there's a lot of individuals who are looking to sue, right? And so you've seen that recently. Workday got sued recently, and that lawsuit is continuing. There have been other lawsuits in the employment arena. I think there's a stat that I saw recently where employment-related discrimination lawsuits have gone up 400% in the last couple of decades. And with AI, it's actually going to be even easier to sue because it's a single model that you can kind of sue on, as opposed to federated recruiters or interviewers and so on and so forth, right? So expect lawsuits to go up. And so that's where your risks are, right? Regulatory risks, financial risks, and then kind of business and reputational risks. And so there's a lot of, serious risks to consider if you don't have good governance.
Absolutely. And I think this is kind of a good pivot into, really how does AI governance start to impact data privacy and security within organizations? Obviously, that's something like the IT department, most organizations are already thinking about.
Mhm.
But does it make sense that AI is going to have any more impact on top of some of those existing policies?
Absolutely. I think the explosion of digital data that we saw over the last decade was a good first step, right, in leading up to kind of AI governance. Because data is part and parcel with AI, right? Without data, you don't have AI, right? But it's not everything either, right? Because on top of data, now you have these algorithms and these models. So when I think about AI, it's a combination of data and it's combined with these algorithms, right? And things like bias can creep into both, right? You can have bias in the data, but you can also have bias in the models themselves. So it's a combination of both of these things to look at. But when you think about these AI regulations and good governance, data governance is absolutely a part of it. In fact, we often break it down into data governance and model governance. And when you think about data governance, it is things that companies have already started looking at in terms of things like cyber, data privacy, data security, data integrity. And companies have been thinking about this for many years. But that's a good starting point. It's not sufficient. So when we think about model governance, that's when you start to get into things like, hey, are you monitoring your models on a host of dimensions? Are you monitoring them around things like bias? Are you monitoring them on things like performance, reliability, hallucinations, et cetera, right? So there's a whole nother category of things to do around model monitoring that then start to become really important as well.
Absolutely. And I'd like to get your thoughts on one more thing before we close out for the day. But last time we talked, before kind of prepping for this, we talked a lot about trust in AI,
Yeah.
and I'd just love to get your perspective on what does that mean, and why is that kind of the building block of the rest of AI governance? And just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, the reason I really believe in our mission is because I think trust is, whether you're a techno optimist or a humanist, trust is critical here, right? Like if you think about any powerful technology, I often give an analogy of cars, right? Imagine hopping into a car where you don't have brakes, you don't have seatbelts, you don't have a dashboard, a check engine light, or a rear view mirror, right? How far are you actually going to drive? How fast are you going to drive, Trevor?
Not very, not
Not
very.
very fast, right? So if you're exactly, so if you're a technologist and you want to move faster on AI, you've got to build trust. This is an equally powerful technology, if not more powerful technology, right? Because of the way it scales. And so if you're actually a data scientist or you're a head of AI at a company or whatever, you want governance because that governance is going to build trust and it's going to enable you to go faster, right? At the same time, if you're a risk officer, if you're in HR, if you're in compliance, that is your day job, right? Risk and trust are your day job. And so you want to ensure that you're building trust, that this is not damaging your company, it's not damaging your employees, it's not damaging others, right? So at the end of the day, on both sides of the equation, I don't see this as hey, two different folks like trying to battle it out over who's, the amount of responsibility here or the amount of compliance here. Both sides should want this because this is what's going to enable you to move faster, to deploy this technology, to build this technology faster. If you can build those governance guardrails in place at the same time, you're just going to go faster and farther. And that's going to differentiate companies, right? Because at the end of the day, it's actually not super hard to build models, right? What's going to differentiate you is your data and your governance. And those are the companies that are going to go faster and further.
That's such a great analogy. I saw somebody in the comments mention it too, but the car, it's such a good analogy for us to make sense of.
Yeah.
But Guru, thanks so much for your insight. I'm sure we will have you on again at some point, and very excited to follow your journey. But wanted to give you a second to plug any kind of resources or
Yeah.
anything that you'd like the audience to take away, and or how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Come visit us at www.fairnow.ai. We have a lot of content and materials if you want to learn more, if you want to learn about impending laws and regulations, if you want to learn about what good governance looks like, or if you want help with any of that, then reach out to us and we can help you. My colleague Kayla is on the LinkedIn Live, and I think she's sharing some of those links as well. And come visit us, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Guru, for joining us. It's been a really, really great conversation. So thanks again for joining. Awesome. Well, thank you all for attending today, this Workplace Tech Spotlight. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. Make sure to share it with your friends. And we'll be on 2 weeks from now on March 15th with a conversation about verified credentials for HR. Very excited to see you then. Thanks so much for joining.